My name is Sue Knott and I'm the chair of the CMC Advisory Committee, and it's my great pleasure to host this first webinar in the new CMC webinar season. So CMC has temporarily rebranded as the Children's Media Community. Our aim is to keep the kids' content community connected and informed, and to keep us all engaged with new ways of working and with creative inspiration. We've restructured to fulfill that aim so that we will now be introducing regular webinars. They'll be kept to 1 hour only at the regular time of 3 p.m. on Fridays, and they'll lead up to the virtual CMC conference, which will be from the 7th to 9th of July at the dates that we originally planned. All of this content can be found on the CMC YouTube channel. The special event we did earlier this week, CMC China Connect, is already there, as are over 70 videos of past CMC content, including masterclasses, keynotes, and changemakers. So welcome to everybody, including our international audience, some of whom may be seeing CMC content for the first time. We hope you all enjoy it and that you find it of value, of course. So before we get started, I really must thank all the keynote sponsors. So they're all up on the screen there. We couldn't have done this without them. There's CBBC and CBeebies, CITV, Daryl McQueen, NBC Universal, and the Elf Factory. We really do give you our heartfelt thanks. We honestly couldn't have done any of this without you. So we want to keep these sessions as interactive as possible, so please do use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We'll try and get to as many questions as we can. All the producers of these sessions are volunteers from the kids media community. The producer of today's session is a very loyal CMC producer who has produced sessions for us every year for the conference for the last 17 years. That's David Kleeman, who is joining us today from Washington. Thank you very much, David. And thanks also to Adam Woodgate, from Leeds-based research company, content company Dubit. He'll be presenting the first part of today's event. So later, we'll be looking at how kids and teens are feeling and thinking at this difficult time, with video made by kids and teens themselves and brought together by the rocket agency Little Shots programme. And then there'll be insights from kids and their families from Lydia Mossahebi from KidsKnowBest agency. So it's a multi-perspective view of kids in the time of Corona. So first of all, welcome to Adam Woodgate. Adam is Senior Vice President Insights at Dubit. And Dubit conducts research and also produces media content informed by their research, most recently VR content. Over to you, Adam.
So thank you very much, and good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are. Just to let you know that we're happy to share these slides with anybody who wants them. My email address is on the last slide. So the data that we're sharing today comes from Dubit Trends, which is our global kids media tracker, where we track children aged 2 to 15 twice a year. We've just completed fieldwork in the US and UK this April. In fact, we're still in field for some of the markets. I suppose we're still in the early days of the coronavirus crisis, in terms of a timeline, and thinking about children's behavior related to their media and tech consumption. While some impacts, no doubt we're seeing, and no doubt people have read, huge uplift in video viewing and linear TV viewing. But the question is, I suppose, what's here to stay and what will revert back to kind of the way it was, if not normal, a new normal. And I suppose one thing, if this lasts, a few more weeks, that's one thing, but if it lasts another 6 to 8 months, well, that's kind of another thing. This was an unprompted comment from one of the kids that we spoke to, and we speak to kids most weeks, both, when we can in person, when we can't, we do it remotely. And this is sort of a young teen, 13-year-old, expressing how he was feeling at the time, which was, enough is enough, what's next? So some of the things that we were planning to do this year, we were planning to focus on a number of things in 2020. And right now they probably seem a lot less relevant. But the same challenges will be here facing children's media when this is all over, if it is all over and there isn't some legacy of it. You know, some of the things we wanted to focus on, you know, particularly with how kids, with all the media out there, they're getting to content, what the impact of smart speakers and audio is, and also, you know, how children, you know, and teens are reacting to animated content. So what are the latest numbers from Trends telling us right now? I mean, here you're looking at 4 years of trends from April 2020 back through April 2017. You know, access to the main devices in the home is relatively little changed, you know, over time at all. There's only one thing that's really moving, and that's smart speakers. But as you can see, that was on a growing trajectory anyway. But it's interesting that smart speakers are getting used. And smart speakers, we've studied a lot over the last year and a half. And, you know, the good news from a kid's perspective is parents don't tend to count them towards that dreaded thing called screen time, but they are being used by kids for simple quizzes, for music, for fun things, you know, even stories at bedtime, even augmenting books. Having a look now at the daily use of those key devices that kids tend to have access to. Use of a TV, and when I say TV, that's not necessarily linear TV, it's the television set itself. Well, as you can see, that's kind of the majority of kids are using a television screen on a daily basis. And that is driven really by the older children, the 8 to 15-year-olds. The tablet's having its moment back in the spotlight, I suppose, because, you know, children were putting the tablet down as smartphones were aging down. So the tablet was naturally getting passed down to a younger sibling, if there was one in the house, or maybe just being put in drawers. However, you know, that portability, that, you know, the ability to take the tablet easily around the house, sit with it on your lap, means suddenly kids are remembering what the tablet was for, especially as they're having to maybe use them for video chat, for family and friends, maybe take part in lessons, remote lessons from school, or even use apps for learning or, you know, other online educational products. So the tablet's having that moment again. As you can see, smartphones actually have more daily use, but a lot of that's driven by older kids. And you'll notice the one big uplift that is a one-wave uplift is the PC laptop, which has jumped up from 17 to 21%. On a weekly basis, you can see just how much media kids consume. That's the main thing from that. The big movers really here are, you know, a little bit more increase in use of tablet across the week, and certainly more increased use of games consoles across the week. And then that the growth in the PC laptop is, you know, education and learning isn't taking place in school at the moment. It's being done mostly in home for most children in the UK and maybe in countries around the world, whilst some key workers' kids may be still in schools or educational establishments. And that home use of schooling is likely to have led to that rebound there in the weekly use of PC laptop amongst kids. We then look at what children do on screens when they're using screens, because we find that every screen has a purpose in a kid's life. You know, you can do tons and tons of things across every device a kid has access to, but kids are really clever at making sense of the things they want to do on different things. And there's been a reversal here in that decline that we saw of use of a television for linear. You can see it was at 68% last wave. It's up to 73% this time. You know, and we're seeing that driven partly by preschool children, as parents who are at home maybe have to get on with working. They're putting their younger ones in front of the TV. Maybe, you know, for the first time, those children are developing a linear experience rather than, or a linear habit rather than watching streaming services, because parents know a service like CBeebies or one of the other preschool channels is designed by content creators who love making content for children. And so they know that the stuff on there is going to be good stuff. Households have only a limited number of subscriptions, we tend to find, maybe one, two, 3 logins to a service like a Netflix or a Now TV. So it's not always possible that kids in the house are going to be on a device that has a login available to get onto one of those subscription services. So it's not surprising that on the right-hand side of the chart, we're seeing non-subscription services starting to grow. And those would include the likes of All4, ITV Hub, and of course, BBC iPlayer. Now, prior to the coronavirus crisis, we were concerned that we thought parents might be maxed out, or certainly getting to the point where they might be maxed out on subscriptions, particularly to streaming services. You've heard of stacking, particularly in America, a subscription to Netflix and to a service like Disney Plus and maybe a Hulu. And here you've got, Netflix, and you've got Now TV and more service, Disney Plus just launched a few weeks ago, and more services on the way as the potential for HBO Max comes onto the horizon and so forth. So we were concerned that there was a maxing out really on subscriptions. However, right now with people locked down, discretionary income has nowhere to go really, other than perhaps online, purchases. So, there is an element of some of that discretionary spend going on other entertainment services. And when this all ends, the question is, what will happen to that money? Will it go back to being spent on amusement arcades, the cinema, bowling alleys? Or, is some of that going to get sucked into more of these subscription services? And this is the top 5 uses of a smartphone. And as parents try and balance the things at home, working for themselves, but keeping their kids occupied, it's not surprising to see that there's been a big jump in the activities that, are taking place on smartphones. We know that parents will load things on for their younger kids onto a smartphone. And, from time to time, they'll hand over their smartphone with something preloaded on it for the children to use. Even parents who are working outside the home still have to find ways of keeping their kids occupied. Handing over the phone, choosing age-appropriate games, videos and apps and other activities that they've already loaded is certainly something that's happening. We're seeing the fact that, on the smartphone, we know that YouTube has grown, and that's watching short form YouTube videos. We know that, that rapid growth in taking photos has tailed off a little bit. That's because older kids who particularly were driving that don't have those occasions anymore to go to social events or activities or get together with friends where they would take photos. But they're still taking photos to some extent. I'll come back to that in a minute. Kids can't play with one another, so they're using video calls to keep in touch with friends or other family members. They're playing games such as Fortnite, and they're doing so via games networks. Not the only one, but it's just an example. They can do the same with FIFA. And these networks have taken over in the short term from kids playing together and physically getting together. And the in-game chat on these, within these games is where, they would have been chatting on the way to lessons or on the way to school or in the playground or somewhere. Children are also engaging with activities away from screens. So arts and crafts, we're seeing, we've seen a big jump in. We're seeing that, families are getting together and playing board games. There was a 240% jump in the sales of board games and jigsaw puzzles during the first official week of the lockdown in the UK, according to NPD research. That's huge. And then, of course, people are adapting and finding ways to do the pub quiz. So we see families coming together on an evening for an hour and doing, a Trivial Pursuits remotely using Skype or Zoom or one of the other video chat services. So we're seeing families adapt, to the circumstances they find themselves under. And we're seeing those times when people would come together being done via screens. And then there's physical activities, time spent outside. The government says you should exercise. So families are going out, they're going walking around the local area, they're getting fresh air. There's elements of playing in the back garden if people have access to a back garden, so that they can, getting away from screens, getting outside, getting some fresh air. And child-parent activities, kids always tell us when we're talking to them that they want those moments in their life when parent and child can come together to do stuff. When we do trends, one of the highest things that always comes out is the fact that they like, going away on the family holiday because they get the undivided attention of their parents. They like going out for a day, or they like going to do something as a family because it gives them that. Well, coronavirus has kind of forced that on, that behavior even more so. You've got a situation where families are doing activities to keep kids occupied. So we saw 92% in sales of flour, according to Kantar World Panel, in the first 4 weeks of the lockdown, because people were buying flour and ingredients to do baking and cooking, and kids are being encouraged to get involved in daily tasks such as cleaning or chores, maybe taking out the recycling, with parents available to supervise and help and advise as where necessary. To some extent, replacing some of those classes like food technology that kids will be doing in school. We were also seeing a lot of behavior where families were coming together anyway, particularly for Saturday night or Friday night television. The shiny floor shows, but I'm thinking Britain's Got Talent and Strictly Come Dancing and The Voice, or the big reveal shows like MasterChef or Great British Bake Off. The interesting thing with those is, if they made an advance in the can, then, as those episodes play out, there's not much production taking place anyway. So, they're going to run out at some point. And then you've got the shows that are being done live. So I'm thinking Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway that was presented with no audience live. And it felt very different because all those interactive elements that bring that show together, whilst it had a huge audience, a lot of those factors that were missing. If you think about, these sorts of series, American Idol is doing the judges remotely. So it'd be interesting to think how that comes on. But there'll be a very different dynamic from the studio audience shows that we're used to as viewers. Dancing and physical skill shows, and I'm thinking physical skill shows like Ninja Warrior won't be very easy to achieve, if at all. And then you've got the cooking, the baking shows. How will that be when, the judges can't taste, they can only look, and there's no moments of drama between the judge and the contestant or between contestants. So there will be, there is going to be an impact on entertainment that families are consuming on screen. Wanted to just give you a quick dip into the platforms and services that are winning and losing. Now, the trajectory for TikTok was always predicting a big increase in our latest set of data. So I'm not surprised to see it's up by 50%. But does the crisis mean more children now have time and the desire to make videos that they can share with families and friends on the platform? And we all know that children under 13 should not be on these platforms, but they are. Worse still, from a child's perspective perhaps, is a children's parents wanting to get involved. Mum or dad dancing, doing 10-second, 20-second videos for TikTok. Think about all those frustrated lockdown parents stuck at home, just thinking, great, I can upload a video onto TikTok. Well, we all know that that's the fastest way to kill a platform in a child's mind is when adults join. The other social streams, and we know that kids are having to stay in touch with via messaging. So unsurprisingly, Messenger Kids doing very well. All those parents who are registered on Facebook can, use this as a way for friends to stay in touch with one another. And there's other social streams for messaging, obviously, and we see growth in Instagram and WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is the most popular messaging platform that we see in trends. As I said before, when you think about Instagram, children don't have as many occasions to take those photographs in social situations, but they still need to maintain their social presence, which is kind of why we're thinking that Instagram is still has ticked up quite a bit. Amazon Prime Video has been a perennial 5th place in the list of streaming services that kids use. It's always been behind perennial leaders, YouTube, Netflix, BBC iPlayer, and YouTube Kids. But its year-on-year growth can partly be attributed to more people signing up with the online delivery service and getting the video as a secondary, sort of thing that comes with the Prime subscription. Netflix put in amazing growth. You probably saw the numbers this week, huge increase in number of subscriptions. And I think it still blows me away whenever I look at the total globe paid subscription base is nearly 183 million customers. And playing video games has always been a function of the amount of time that kids have, available to them at any point in time. Typically on weekdays, they don't have a lot of time, which is why generally we don't see much games console use in the week. Kids are more likely to play app games because they're short form, they're snackable, they're easy to dip in and out of. But now that kids have more time, to play, we're wondering whether that they're returning to some of their favorite console games, which includes Minecraft, Mario, Fortnite, and Roblox. They're the top 4, all of which, have been played by around a third of kids that we survey in the last week, a third of 2 to 15-year-olds in the last week. The percentage on screen shows the games that have increased the most compared to last time. So you're seeing, big growth in Sonic. There's also an element of, we wonder whether, we know that kids in times of, turmoil tend to go to things that remind them of a happier time. And, Mario, Sonic, Pokemon, all games that they probably played when they were starting gaming, and maybe there's an element of returning to that. So we also asked in this trends, as we knew we were in field when we were going into field when the crisis was fully underway globally. So we asked a bunch of questions about whether kids were actually seeking content related or to find out more about the coronavirus. And what we see is just by a small margin, a majority of children have sought more information. There's very little difference between the genders. We obviously didn't ask it for 2 to 4-year-olds, which is why it's not on the chart. But certainly kids from 5 upwards, there's little difference between the genders. And as you can see, they become more interested by age, slightly more boys than girls in the 5 to 7s that, had a desire to find out more. And then we wanted to know where they went to find out more about coronavirus. No surprise that parent, guardian is number 1. And no surprise really that, when it comes to younger children, they're more likely to turn to someone they know and trust, so another family member or a teacher, although teachers obviously less so now, but certainly turning to someone they trust is where, they were going to get that information. Whereas as they got older, they're more likely, or the older children are more likely to go to media or go online to find information. Girls, although not shown on the chart, girls are more likely to turn to someone or use, official sources such as a government or health department website, whereas boys go online, typically using websites, YouTube search engines to find out for themselves. And obviously that's that boy behavior lasts into adulthood because men simply don't ask directions, do they? Anyway, what we also asked, and just outside the top 10, which is why there's a line, we also asked whether they turn to TV news programs made specially for kids. And you may have noticed Obviously in the UK we have Newsround, but NBC in the States is now doing a broadcast, NBC Nightly News Kids Edition. CBC has its Kids in Canada, and a number of other, around the world. So what's interesting is that performs surprisingly low in this audience, although it's highest with the 8 to 10-year-olds. And a little bit to the left on the chart, you'll notice though that YouTube, which has uncurated, unchecked content, actually in the 8 to 10-year-olds, 21% of them are going to YouTube as opposed to watching a TV news channel made for kids. So kind of interesting that YouTube outperforms TV news programs made specially for kids. And just while we're on the subject of news, we don't generally ask it in trends, but we did sort of say, where as a kid do you generally find out about news and information? And again, younger kids tend to skew towards people they know and trust. So kids tend to go towards media itself. So, app from a TV news service, or also BBC News app or ITV News app, something like that. Or they go into social media to get their feeds. Thoughts for broadcasters there on the importance of making sure, you have presence in social platforms, social videos such as YouTube, so that you can be found, when kids are looking for news in those platforms. Children becoming more closely attached to their parents, and also, emotionally attached as well. And parents can also express a concern to us that, some of their anxieties, about this, because at the end of the day, we as parents are finding our way in this new existence just as much as children are. However, children rely on adults for confidence and that sense of security. And parents do worry that those anxieties are being implicitly communicated to the children. Children are sensing an atmosphere of this doesn't seem right, and they're watching reactions of their parents. And parents are anxious about not having answers that they can give their children. Parents like to be able to give some reassurance, and usually friends or routines act as a buffer against these sorts of emotions. But that's not happening now. You can't go around for a sleepover. Friends can't get together to go play in the park anymore. Those sorts of things are not happening. Those children who have siblings are asking them questions, whereas some parents are taking a more proactive approach, and they're talking to their children about this. And some are even allowing children to watch the daily news briefings that's being put out. But the biggest issue that we find that children have is worries about a grandparent, or worries about someone they love getting sick and what would happen. And when will they be able to see their friends and physically spend time with their friends, which is one of the things that kids just tell us they're missing the most. So that's what we know. And I suppose the last part really is thinking about the questions for the future, looking to the future to see what's happening now, what behaviours might start getting entrenched the longer this goes on, or what things are still, have some flexibility and will return to normal. We sort of see this desire that the media you see the media asking a lot of questions about when the lockdown will end. And we see news from other countries where they're giving dates when they'll start easing restrictions and so forth. But, whatever happens, markets always have two sides. There's the producer or the supplier, and there's the consumer or the one who's demanding stuff. And stuff that has to have been in a form of equilibrium if it's going to work. The analogy that my colleague David Kleeman uses is it's no good to two parlours opening, if people aren't going to get tattoos. Now, I know that's not kid related, but if you think of it that way, there's no point opening your shop if no one's going to come into it, because people aren't ready to come out and go into it because they're concerned about going in those places. So think about cinemas, very densely packed auditoriums with people. What is the cinema going to do when it reopens? Is it going to lock out a number of seats in the way that airlines are saying they'll lock out the middle seat? who knows? So, and not just that, we've seen that cinemas being closed has meant that film studios, i.e. the producers, have had to find new sorts of ways to get to market. And that's launched a new VOD acronym, Premium VOD or PVOD, which is this, releasing movies on the day they'd have landed in the cinema, straight onto platforms like iTunes or Sky Store. And you've now got media companies seeing great success in that. Universal told Variety that the movie, that its Troll movie that's just been released generated about 10 times more than the next largest premium home video release to date. So, the movie companies will be looking at whether they can skip the cinemas and go direct to home. That allied to the fact was, I don't know whether you saw the survey by CMC that was released on the 14th of April, where it said 1 in 5 people in the UK were less likely to go to live events as a result of this, and 11% less likely to go to a cinema. So, it's making people think, it's changing their behaviours. And again, the longer things go on, the less likely, or the more some of those new behaviours will become entrenched. When kids use platforms to do things, kids are very good at adapting platforms to suit their needs. So, I always think about the tablet, invented not for kids, not made for kids, but look at the way kids have adopted them, grasped the way of using them, and so you have products that kids are using, and they come up with ways to use them that the developers of those products or the creators of those products never had in mind. I think of the big thing recently that you'll have seen, no doubt, in the news and in the trade press, birthday parties and Roblox, chill out zones in Roblox and things like that for kids just to have a break from all of this. So where previously they were going to get together with friends, they're doing this in Roblox, taking part in other activities on different platforms. And children are always great at making sense and working solutions with what they've got. Throw them a load of stuff on a table, they'll make it work for themselves. So you need to think about the moments you might own that you've never thought about before, that your platform or product can deliver for kids. And when the lockdown ends, one of the things that Trends tells us is, when we ask them this question really early on in the survey, is what are the most important things in your life? And the 2 most important things without fail are friends and family. And there's nothing between them. The figures are very similar. And when this ends, will it be a situation that, media will have to face the fact there'll be a decline for a short while kids go out, they spend time together, especially if it ends over the summer and the weather's good and the days are long in the Northern Hemisphere. Will it be a case of that? But they'll come back, and perhaps what brands have to do is be ready for when the kids come back with some great stuff to, entertain and engage. It would be very strange to think that, having been cut off from friends and family and being able to do things for so long, that there isn't immediate, we're going out, we're turning the screens off, we're going to do this. And where are the opportunities in education? It's been really interesting to read the number of public service broadcasters around the world, BBC, RTVE in Spain, CBC, France Télévision in France, who are, thinking about and have added educational content to support families at home. I think BBC had 3 million register for Bite Size Daily. I think I read that correctly. So, where are the opportunities for media in education, which is always an area that media has kind of really struggled with. It was very formal when I was growing up, and the TV was wheeled into the classroom, and you knew that you were going to be watching a 20-minute program on a particular subject, and you wouldn't have to listen to the teacher you're watching on a screen, and there was a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that kind of evolved into always available on-demand clips and bits and pieces that kids could tap into and tap out of as a resource. rather than it being scheduled or, having to be recorded on tape and then played out later. So what are the opportunities in education, from home to school, school to home, from parents, teacher, and vice versa? A lot of this is being improvised as we speak. A lot of it's being, people are thinking, wow, we could do this, we could do that. And where are the moments in the day when learning and educational content could fit into their lives? That's kind of like, in terms of a sense of where, we're thinking about one of the big areas to come out of this is whether, more schooling can be done remotely, with assignments, submitted through things like Microsoft Teams and other products that schools are using to, facilitate kind of this remote school teaching. And that's it. Thank you. There's my email address. If you'd like a copy of the presentation, please let me know.
Thank you very much indeed, Adam. That's absolutely packed full of information and useful insights. We've got a couple of questions come through. If anyone else wants to get a question in, we don't have a lot of time, but you can still get your question in using the Q&A button. One question that's come in, Adam, now that live action productions are on hold, do you think animation will see a spike in interest among 9 to 12-year-olds? 9 to 12-year-olds usually start to move more towards live action stuff, but if that's all on hold, will they start reverting to animation?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. One of the things, we've studied a lot with, we did a presentation at MEC Junior called The Middle Kingdom, where we showed that animation was being squeezed because kids aren't necessarily watching the places or in the places where that animation is being delivered. One of the things that I can say is, again, from trends this time, is kids still love animation. The problem is, they've aged up a little, so they're looking for slightly older animation, which is why they have a big affinity towards The Simpsons and so forth. I think they're always going to love live action. They're always going to love animation. It's a combination of the two. The problem with the problem with that live sort of content is if it's not being there, then they'll have to go and find it elsewhere. And the trouble is right now, Sue, is they tend to go to YouTube to get that stuff because the broadcasters can't turn it around as fast as YouTubers can.
Yeah, and kind of following on from that, Adam, another question has just come in. Do you think that when we return to filming in live action, children would like us to reflect the new social distancing world or a more escapist, non-corona world?
Ooh, that's a difficult one. I saw a TV channel show a caption in front of a show where it said, this program was recorded before social distancing was imposed. Yeah. And it made me think, wow, did you really need to tell me that? Part of me thinks a lot of the reason we enjoy entertainment is to escape from the world. And so perhaps I'm thinking, there may be elements where they do have to, but I think a lot where, I think when we come out of this, there's going to be a lot of escapism needed.
Thank you. And another question has just come in. What do you think the long-term impact of learning moving to online might be? For example, the popularity of Joe Wick's PE classes or BBC Bite-Size Daily. Is that something parents and kids might use after isolation? Will their habits change?
I'd like to think that Joe Wick's and stuff like that and Bite-Size Daily continued. I think, they augment what's available for kids to be involved in. Joe's going to have to find another time to do it other than 9 in the morning when schools are back in full operation, but maybe during the school holidays they can continue, and maybe they can continue at weekends and other times.
Great. And somebody else wondered if you had any data around media usage time patterns and how these have changed for kids. They've increased, but it's more spread out.
We do so. Unfortunately, we've not finished the analysis yet, so that will be being published, in the next couple of weeks, maybe a bit longer. We just haven't finished the analysis of the time spent data yet.
Right, and you also you referred to parents relaxing rules about screen time, but do you think they also relax concerns about other elements of media use like age appropriateness and privacy?
I think they're still I mean, in terms of screen time, I think there's a lot of different. I think there's always a difference between what parents say they impose on screen time and what they actually do. But I think in terms of appropriateness, I think parents are, again, a little bit more strict. And I think what we're seeing is, it's an easy call for a parent to put a child in front of CBeebies or CBBC or CITV. And that's an easy call. They know it's curated for kids, made by people who love kids content. So I think they are doing that, but I think there's an element of kids being allowed, because parents are busy, they're getting on with Zoom calls. The differentiation between work and home has disappeared because we're all working, or a lot of people are working from home. And I think that means there's an element of kids still getting away with being on things that perhaps parents wouldn't be too happy that they're using.
Yeah, we're fast running out of time for Q&A, but just one last question. The app and game engagement is very high at the moment, as you said. Do you see children stepping away from screens after this, or do you think we'll see permanent audience growth as a result of increased screen time acceptance?
I think they will step away a bit. I think it will settle down, but I think that there'll be more consumption of video. I think there's only 6 hours in the day when kids aren't sleeping or in school. So, there's still only so much on a weekday that a kid can consume. So it's whether, how they balance that with outdoor versus indoor.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We're going to have to move on now, or we won't have time for everybody else. Thank you so very much, Adam. That's been absolutely brilliant, very informative. So we're now going to move on to a slightly different perspective, looking at how kids are coping, which Adam touched on, but we're going to look in a bit more detail at what kids are actually thinking and feeling. So kids all over the world are now at home. They're in small groups, usually family. How do they feel with no school and with their family a lot more? How do they think adults are coping? Who do they blame for this huge, massive change in their daily life, particularly perhaps teens who are missing out on rites of passage? What are they doing with their time? So we've all got evidence of this, either anecdotal or from our own personal experience, but now with the help of the Rocket's Little Shots team, we're going to hear directly from kids at home. And then Lydia Mossahebi from KidsKnowBest is going to give us a few more insights, particularly from children who are less able to get out from where they live. But first of all, the video from Rocket Agency's Little Shots. Thank you.
How are you feeling right now?
Slightly confused. I'm feeling good.
Happy.
Bored.
I'm just bored and annoyed.
I'm feeling alright. Yeah.
I'm feeling happy and annoyed at the same time.
I feel fine. I feel a bit like I'm in a school holiday. I just can't see any of my friends or my family.
I'm feeling a lot happier and more motivated compared to the beginning of lockdown because I've gotten used to the scheme of things and I've accepted the situation I'm in.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of feel frustrated and a little bit fed up with everything. I kind of want everything to be over.
Well, I feel weird. I feel very, very weird. This is not normal.
I'm feeling energised and energetic, I think that's the same thing, but because I've had so much sleep, I haven't had to get up as early in the mornings and I've slept much better at home in lockdown.
There's no exact date telling us when this is going to end and when we'll be allowed to see our friends, to see our family, so I'm just waiting to go outside. I'm like, hurry up.
I would say I'm feeling quite strange, very mixed emotions, but what I keep telling myself is that the whole world is in this situation and it's not just me, and that's really been keeping me motivated.
I wake up and I'm just like, is this really happening? Is this what's going on right now? Is this what?
During lockdown, what has been the hardest thing to get used to?
Staying in my house the whole time.
Not going outside my front door. The fact that we can't do basic things such as going out shopping, like food shopping.
One of the hardest things to get used to is like not seeing my friends.
Not seeing my friends pretty much every day in person.
Not playing with my friends and not having my daddy here.
Just being with my family constantly because they're driving me insane.
You gotta just sit there and take it and accept it for what it is.
I would say that the hardest thing to get used to would be transitioning from public school to online school.
Doing it all from home seems very weird and it's taking a lot of time to get used to, but I'll be alright.
What has been the best thing about being in lockdown? What have you done for fun?
The best thing about being in lockdown, I say, is bonding with the family.
It encouraged me to play Fortnite more often.
I can play in the sun.
Playing in the garden and editing stuff with my mum. I've done quite a lot of cycling, I have to say.
My favourite thing being in lockdown is the days are getting shorter.
Lockdown's almost given me a chance to go back and do the things that I know I love but haven't had the time to do.
I'm not gonna lie, I think I've been really productive during lockdown. I'm quite fortunate that I've been able to find a few jobs.
I've had a chance to be really creative and I've had loads of time to work on my EP.
Best thing about quarantine, I can sleep in till 3 p.m. and no one can tell me anything about it because guess what? I have nowhere to be and nothing to do.
I've been watching the live streams people have been doing, free theatre shows, musicals, concerts, talks, interviews, basically everything that's being streamed online.
I've been kind of working on my relationship with my little sister. I mean, we were cool before, but we're definitely a lot closer now. Bella?
What are you most looking forward to doing when we leave lockdown?
Play with my friends. Being able to see my friends.
See my friends in person.
Seeing all my friends.
I want to visit my friends.
I am looking very, very, very forward to seeing my friends and my family.
Seeing my friends again.
I feel like everyone's going to be saying this, but definitely to see my friends. I miss my friends so much.
Oh, what I'm looking forward to, the parties. Because let's be honest, everyone is just looking to party when we come out this quarantine.
I'm really looking forward to going to McDonald's. My God, I miss McDonald's.
I crave a Big Mac so much at the moment and I'm missing it.
Going back to school would be quite nice. I've realised how much I actually miss it.
Do you think that life after lockdown will be different or the same, and why?
I think it would be different because the coronavirus might still be happening.
People are going to have a lot more caution, and I doubt you'll be able to cough in public without somebody getting scared.
The whole world's been shaken up. It's a global pandemic. It's affected absolutely every single person.
Everyone's still going to be so cautious and worried. They'll be like, this happened, we can't let it happen again.
People will realise how much they took everyday things for granted.
I think people will have more respect in general.
All those times that you're with your friends and family, you should cherish those moments because as this lockdown has taught us, it can be taken away just like that.
What have your parents been like during lockdown?
They've been a bit funny.
They're not teaching properly and they're not a proper teacher.
My dad is an essential worker and my mum is as kind as ever.
They've been quite kind and understanding for it, but again, they can get a bit annoying.
I think that we've taken extra care towards each other to have a nice time, even though that we can't go out.
Both of my parents are working from home, so I mean, it's not too strange because my parents are still working.
My mum, she's been trying to do loads of stuff around the house. She's actually seen it as an opportunity to get us all fit, go cycling, do stuff together, clean the house.
My dad's now found out what TikTok is. I was really hoping this day wouldn't come, but it's come.
I was living with my mum when it first happened and she had supplies for days, all by the door, stack boxes of pasta, toilet roll, all other types of fruits, vegetables, all of that. We were good to go. My stepdad's fridge, empty.
What do you think the impact will be of you not doing your SATs this year in year 6?
I think it won't show how good I am at all the subjects.
Just imagine you've worked 18 years of your life to get into your dream college, into your dream uni and dream job just to be told, sorry, not gonna happen.
I wasn't looking forward to them, but I feel like I've missed out on a really important time in my life.
Oh girl, got me crying.
Do you think your parents would make good teachers?
No.
Yes.
No. Yes.
No.
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 They have patience and they know what they're talking about, which I'm very happy that they know what they're talking about, but yeah, they definitely make good teachers.
Yes. Crazy and boring and lovely teachers.
And what message would you share with key workers and those who work for NHS right now?
Thank you, NHS. Like that.
Like what?
Like the rainbow.
I would like to say to all of you guys, just thank you and keep doing what you've been doing.
Thank you. Thank you for saving people.
Just thank you. You're so brave for working during these times.
We're all super, super proud of you and keep doing what you're doing.
Keep doing what you're doing and don't give up.
Thank you for doing this all. We really appreciate it all.
Thank you so much. You guys are angels, absolute angels.
You guys are literally saving the world right now.
One word. Amazing. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for risking your lives for ours. It's greatly appreciated. And I love you.
As one of our questioners said, the kid in the garden is living his best life. So it's good that some people are having fun. We will probably go about 5 minutes over, if that's okay with everybody. We want obviously to give Lydia Mossahebi as much chance as possible to share her insights. Lydia is editorial director at KidsKnowBest. Lydia, over to you.
Hi there, thanks Sue. So obviously there's a lot for us all to consider in the current situation and the impacts this is having across all of our businesses and the industry as a whole. But it's really important for us to take some time and focus on kids and understand how it's affecting them, and that it's not always easy or fun. We need to work out what we can do in the media to inform content creators and brands about the impact this is having on kids. So it's really important for us to have a think about how this looks through a kid's lens. We've spoken a bit about today about how but it is crucial to remind ourselves. Kids' lives, routines and relationships have fundamentally changed overnight. They can't see their friends, their families, they can't go to school or anywhere else they'd normally go to for fun. And worse than that, they're being told to keep their distance from people and they're scared of getting too close, which really goes against what they're often told to do and how they're brought up to socialise. So they're hyper aware of what the virus is and they know what they need to do day to day to keep safe, but they don't often know that bit in between. And they know a lot about the science and the politics and the conspiracy theories, and we'll hear one of those in a moment, that's quite fun. And all of this is kind of becomes a really big responsibility for young minds to take, let alone thinking about the normal developmental stages they might be going through. So what we wanted to do, we wanted to look at how kids aged 5 to 12 were doing. So we asked them to talk to us and we asked them to send us videos on a range of topics and to answer an array of questions. We then created our series Staying Up, which we launched last week. And I wanted to share some highlights from it with you. So if we could run the video.
We have to fight the coronavirus. McDonald's is shut down.
Why is he wearing a mask?
Because the coronavirus!
Made this poster collage because I really miss my friends.
Thank you all, key workers.
How did the coronavirus come?
Well, Donald Trump made it.
So you can see from that what kids sort of wanted to tell us and show us. So there were 5 things we took away from this project. Firstly, device use. Like Adam explained earlier, kids are spending more time on their devices. Alongside this video project, we've been polling kids on our poll app, Luti. And one stat that jumped out of us is that kids are using their phones more than ever. And we're seeing apps like House Party and Zoom being used and starting to infiltrate the kids market, which is really interesting to think about how phones and social platforms are really shaping the relationships they have with their families and friends now in a way they didn't need to rely on before. Secondly, they also seem to be enjoying more family time. So the problem with this is that it does come with its own challenges. So Anyone with kids will understand that juggling work, multiple kids, small spaces, and kids' education isn't easy. It can create an intense environment that can lead to temper tantrums and conflict, especially with siblings and the family as a whole. And it's some of the stuff we saw in the rocket video as well before. And thirdly, the resolution we seem to be seeing to this is creativity. So regardless of resources and space that kids have, so we're seeing kids in small flats in inner cities with no outdoors, and then kids in countryside with large gardens, kids are finding ingenious ways to use creativity as a coping mechanism. And we saw that even in the number of kids involved in this project. We had around submissions from about 80 kids, and the creative lengths they went to show us what they're up to. So we saw them making their own games, recreating TikTok videos as a family, and painting rainbows. And fourthly, there's a real engagement with their community. There's a lot of love for key workers and their heroes, and they're hyper aware of the work they do, and they feel really positive about it. And there's a really strong engagement with showing their support in their local community, and that's coming through with them taking part in the clapping, the rainbows, and messages around staying safe and being kind that they're putting in their windows. But needless to say, all of this is coming at the expense of schoolwork. So there's a lot going on, and it's really important that we remember that not all parents are able to support their kids' education. It could be that they're still working, they're anxious and stressed about losing their jobs, they have a different financial situation, or they aren't as well equipped to help their kids with learning goals. Not to mention kids who might have special learning needs. So it's really important that media find ways to help support families in this. And BBC Bite Size Daily is one of those examples. And we saw in the early days of the crisis that the learning is taking a backseat with an increased amount of playtime. And there was a really interesting chart the other day from Kadumi on LinkedIn, where they saw a change to play throughout the day rather than having any usual peaks. So all of this has been really interesting to hear from kids themselves about how they're adapting and the coping mechanisms they're using to get by, especially how creativity is being used and how they're making the most of the resources and space they have available. And that's something we're going to be looking at closely and impacting and understanding what impact this has on kids' mental health now and in the long term. So we're monitoring it, we're listening to kids, and we're speaking to academic partners to understand if and what impact it might have on kids from all different parts of society. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That was lovely to get your insights, and I'm sorry we had to squeeze you in at the end.
No problem.
So that's it, everybody. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Please join us again next Friday. Next Friday's session will be the options for freelancers. There's a link on the screen. The subject will be surviving as a freelancer under lockdown. We'll look at the options for freelancers and the people who are campaigning to get them supported. And then Friday the 15th of May, we've got a webinar on content in the time of Corona. And again, the link is there for you to follow. So we hope you've really enjoyed our first CMC webinar. We've more or less kept on track, with many thanks to Darren and Joe and the people who are scrabbling away behind the scenes. Thank you. We hope we've all enjoyed it. There is going to be a survey which you can fill in to say what you found useful, and see you next time, and have a really good weekend. Bye.